If you have a smaller home project that needs attention, Ace Handyman can help you out with that. Part of the Ace Hardware family, they handle everything from gutter cleanings, Christmas light installations, deck repairs, any home project that takes between 2 hours and 2 days. With over 1,400 5-star Google reviews, Ace Handyman will connect you with a local licensed general contractor who's been background checked, bonded, and insured by Ace. Plus, they offer a 1-year warranty. To book your appointment, head over to acehandymanservices.com. That's acehandymanservices.com. Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about Mayor Keith Wilson declaring victory on reaching a pivotal goal in his plan to end unsheltered homelessness, as well as his pick for our new city administrator. Plus, why Portland's housing authority is currently sitting on nearly 8,000 empty affordable apartments, while more Portlanders are becoming homeless. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Willamette Week City Hall reporter Sophie Peel and our very own executive producer, John Notarianni. Also, just a big thank you to the YMCA of Columbia Willamette for sponsoring today's show. It's Friday, December 5th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Sophie, John, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hi, Claudia.
Hey, good morning.
Today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town, like Sophie here. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask our guests an opening question so our listeners have an idea of what they're getting themselves into. It's related to the fact that next week, we're going to be launching our end-of-year membership campaign. So my question to you, oh my God, I love the quiet clap, John.
I didn't want to interrupt you with a woohoo, so I just did a little stage clap on the video.
Yeah, it didn't interrupt anything. So my question to you both is, what would be an ideal member perk to add to our already growing list of benefits? We have ad-free listening, invites to quarterly member-only events, occasionally free tickets to something cool, discounts, early access to our event picks for the week, and the opportunity to shout out local businesses and orgs that you love on the show and on the newsletter. So, if I gave you guys full power to add another member benefit, what would it be?
I have not thought this through at all, so this might be a horrible idea, but the first thing that comes to mind, take your podcaster to work day. So what if we did this? Every member was able to choose one of us and bring us along for a day at work and be like, hey, here's Claudia. She's my podcaster.
What? What's the benefit
and you
of that?
could hang out and they could ask you questions and you could tell them what you think about work. Sophie, as a regular guest, you can be in on this too. You could go and hang out at the brewery with our members.
God,
I don't know.
wish.
I think it's a really good idea.
Well, John, if it is a brewery, I will sign on. But I don't think it will be a brewery.
So
you're like, John, most people don't work at breweries.
I love that John's 2 jobs. He's like, podcaster in a brewery, right?
What else is there?
What else is there?
I love thinking of a mechanic going into his auto body shop, and being to his fellow mechanics, this is my podcaster. And then he crawls under a car. And Claudia's just standing there.
And I'm like, hey,
it's me.
So what you guys talking about? That's an interesting one. Well, definitely, I'm writing it down, John.
Yeah.
My hands don't look like they are, but I am.
Okay.
Sophie, what about you?
Okay, mine is less fun, but I think it's probably more practical. Okay, I have 2 ideas. One is Christmas themed.
Oh, okay. Love a theme.
You guys should make little ornaments with all 3 of your faces on it. And then give them to members. I'm serious. I would get one. Well, I would want it for free, but I would get one. I would take one. I would receive one.
I'm just imagining our 3 faces terrorizing children across Portland of who are those 3 creepy people on my Christmas tree?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
My other one is that I think it would be fun if members could once every month or 2 call into the show and ask a question of both you guys and whoever the guest is. Whether it's Portland-centric, whether it's more personal. I don't know. It's just kind of fun to have live voices sometimes.
I kind of like that idea, actually.
Podcast.
It's pretty cool. I mean, not understanding the mechanics aside.
Right. Well,
or how
it
it
can come
would
later.
Yeah, like maybe there's just a dedicated cell phone, like the bat line, John.
Right.
But it's like our listener line.
So we're just going to give them all your phone number, Claudia.
No, it's my number. I'm looking at your number.
503.
You can give them mine. I don't have a work phone.
Claudia's like, don't give out my phone number.
Oh my God. Okay. That's a really interesting one. I'm going to work that up the chain. I'm going to do it. Well, if any of these sound pretty cool to you and you want to become a new member, I mean, I don't know which one we'll adopt out of these three. Maybe all three. Possibly not, but maybe. Head over to membership.citycast.fm. You'll get early access to the CityCast member perk that we're throwing in for this campaign, which is going to be a beanie. John, I think we both have one.
CityCast beanies, baby. Yeah. As we go into the winter months, representing CityCast in style all across the city.
That's right. I mean, I wear mine all the time because that's the only beanie I own. They're pretty cool looking. And again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right. On to the news of the week. John, what do you got for us?
I am talking about shelter beds and the big announcement from Mayor Keith Wilson earlier this week about hitting his goal. This comes from some great reporting by Lillian Mongeau-Hughes over at the Oregonian. You probably remember in his campaign for mayor, Keith Wilson promised to establish 1,500 new shelter beds by December 1st of this year. Very ambitious goal. I think for a lot of the year, people were sort of like, how the heck is he going to do that? Well, earlier this week on Monday, Mayor Wilson had his mission accomplished moment. He said that he had successfully set up 1,566 new shelter beds in Portland. It's a big political win for Wilson. I think that making an audacious goal like that and hitting it, is really being looked at as a big success. A lot of people were really, really doubtful about whether he was going to hit it. When you dig into the numbers, there's a little bit of creative math happening here. I would say technically he did hit it, but right now there's 890 new city-funded beds online. There's another 200 beds opening at an overnight shelter later this month. Also, a 96-bed overnight shelter coming soon in the Centennial neighborhood. And the mayor is also counting 380 so-called flex beds that officials say they can deploy within 24 hours notice to hit that number.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not like there's 1,500 new beds open right now for people to put bodies into, but they're saying that they can, let's say we have a snow emergency or some other thing that ramps up capacity, or saying that they can turn on a switch and hit that 1,500. And I think part of the reason that they can get away with that is, as we will get into, a lot of these shelters aren't at capacity right now. So yeah, I think it is a huge success. There are still several challenges ahead, a number of critiques about this shelter system so far. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, not to, dull some of the shine of hitting a goal. I always thought what he said he was going to do was end unsheltered homelessness by the end of the year. And maybe that was just, I don't know, a more grandiose statement than he meant to state. But that was what he ran on.
You're right. I mean, there was a pivot at some point where, during the campaign, he did say end unsheltered homelessness. Then I believe once he got into office, he was like, the way I'm going to do it is this sort of shelter bed system to create an opportunity for anybody to have a bed that needs it. So it's, it doesn't mean that homelessness is now gone in Portland. And by some measures, it is going up. There's an estimate of 7,500 people living unsheltered in Multnomah County right now, which is actually an increase from where it was when he took office. So yes, actual unsheltered homelessness has not been eviscerated in Portland, but there's a lot of beds.
I think you're right, John, that everyone was really dubious that he could even open 1,500 beds, which, as you've pointed out, aren't really 1,500. It's more like maybe 1,200, maybe 1,000, but capacity for 1,500 apparently. And so that was sort of his first test. But, I think Mayor Wilson lives in I think in his head, it's always best case scenario. If everything were to be optimized and maximized, and if everything were to go exactly as planned. And I think everyone knows that in government, in politics, and also in homelessness, that's just not how it works. It's far more nuanced than that. And I think that's what homelessness providers were always trying to tell him is you can't think best case scenario because that's just realistically not what's going to happen. You also have to think about inflow, right? These recent numbers from Multnomah County show that every month we have more people who are falling into homelessness than we are getting out of homelessness. And I don't think he thought about his goal was very simple. It felt somewhat arbitrary. And he chose this one thing in a matrix of things. as like the end all be all. And that's just not how it works. And I think the next test for him is really going to be, can he pivot? And not necessarily pivot to downsizing beds, but more pivot to, okay, what now? You've got these beds that you said you are going to get. One, many of them aren't occupied. So do we actually need 1,500 beds, or can we shut down some of those and maybe turn, the spaces that you're paying rent for, like into, meal times instead, or whatever. Whether he shows flexibility is going to be a huge test for him. I don't think he's the most flexible person in the world. I think he's super type A. And I think sometimes, in some ways, I think that's fantastic. I think it's great that he had a goal. And I think in some ways it's really great that he hit a goal, because I think we've had like a complete dearth of politicians who have actually had tangible goals and have hit them. And at the same time, like, I think goals can also kind of obscure the bigger picture. And I think right now that's happening with him. And so I'm very curious to see what happens in like the first 6 months of the next year, like the next steps to actually get people in housing and rent assistance and preventing someone from falling into homelessness, and then the cost of getting someone into permanent, like that's it's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this sort of, to me, reads like he campaigned as being, I'm a business executive. I'm used to getting things done. I set a goal, I achieve a goal. And this is both the benefit of that strategy and some of the shortcomings, In addition to what we mentioned a few times about a lot of these shelters not being at capacity yet, there are a number of criticisms of the system as it's been implemented over the course of the last year. A lot of these are overnight only shelters that don't offer additional services. So there is concerns about the sort of overarching effectiveness of these things. And the sort of big looming question is, like, putting someone in a shelter, as you mentioned, is not the same as putting them in permanent housing. And like that next step is like so much more complicated, is so massive, and like is going to require investment and buy-in and flexibility from so many arenas that like that is the ultimate test. And like progress on that goal is still, there's been some efforts made in that direction and some interesting policies that have been put in place. But at this point, it's still just a drop in the bucket. The number of unsheltered people is still going up.
Yeah. I mean, also the other thing that's going to affect all this is our city administrator, which we will get into a little bit later.
It's all connected.
Yeah. But let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, more headlines of the week. Give someone you love the gift of exploration all year long with an OMSI membership. And right now, you can save 15% on memberships through January 5th. Whether you're looking for outings with visiting family over the holidays, summer camps for the kids, or just everyday moments of wonder, an OMSI membership unlocks it all. And in addition to year-round admission to the museum, you get discounts on all OMSI camps and classes, including vouchers for OMSI's planetarium, the USS Blueback submarine, and documentaries on Portland's largest movie screen, the Empirical Theater. Plus, your OMSI membership supports programs that bring hands-on science education to schools and communities across Oregon and the Pacific Northwest. There's never been a more meaningful time to support this work. To get your membership today, visit omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. This season, the YMCA of Columbia-Willamette is reminding us of what belonging really means. Through their Belonging Through Gratitude campaign, local Y staff and volunteers are helping families across Portland and Vancouver find nourishment, dignity, and connection. Your generosity supports their programs like community food pantries, after-school meals, youth development, and family enrichment across the region. Because gratitude isn't just something we feel, it's something we can all do. Join the Y in building a stronger, more nourished community. Give today at ymcacw.org/gratitude. That's ymcacw.org/gratitude. All right, Sophie, what do you have for us? I know it's related to housing.
Yes, everything that rises must converge, as someone wise once told me.
I'm assuming it's good news. Right?
No, not.
Oh, okay.
It's not good news. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. But no, I would say overall no. So Home Forward, which is the city's housing authority, we got data from them last month that shows that out of roughly 6,800 affordable housing units that they either own or basically that they kind of oversee, 955 of those are empty right now, which is a lot. It's about 1 in 7 Earlier this week, the Oregonian had reported on a vacancy report from CoStar, which estimated that there are about 1,900 empty affordable housing units across the city out of a total of 25,000 affordable units. I think what struck me is that if the CoStar report is right, that means half of the affordable housing units that are vacant right now in the city are actually within the city's housing authority's portfolio, which to me is really striking. Now, to give Home Forward some credit, I think they have some very legitimate reasons for why some of these units are vacant. A number of these buildings recently opened, like in the summer, in the fall, some in the spring, and so it takes time to lease those properties up. So that's a chunk of those properties. Another 2 buildings sustained pretty bad damage from the January 2024 winter storm. And so they had to go through, a bunch of their units had to be vacated. They had to go through all these like city inspection processes and permitting stuff. And so they just recently got the green light to lease those up. And another reason why some of these units are vacant is that most of the vacant units are at the 60% area median income level. So what that means is, let's say I'm a renter and, I make $40,000 a year, and I have no idea what that is as far as area median income, but let's say that's like 60% of the area median income is $40,000. Mm-hmm. So I would only be able to apply to that apartment if I'm at the 60% AMI and below level, which for me would be, $40,000. And right now, because of dropping market rate rents and rising affordable rents, they're basically on par with each other.
Oh,
so
my.
So if someone's going to choose between, okay, do I want to go through all this crazy paperwork to get into an affordable unit, and there's this market rate unit that is like overall better, and at basically the same price or within $100, and I can afford that extra $100, of course people are going to go with the market rate unit. There is not all that much demand for Home Forward 60% AMI units. Like they've kind of tapped out on demand for those units. Where they really need more units, but where they have far fewer units is at like the, 40% AMI and below, 30% AMI and below, like really the people who are struggling to make rent and who need deeply discounted rent. And a lot of those units are filled right now, according to Home Forward's spokesperson. So basically there's kind of a mismatch of units to like clientele. Another one of the tough things that I'm trying to explore a little bit more right now is that the city of Portland is a funding partner in a lot of Home Forward's properties. The city basically has like an affordability covenant over those units and over that building saying, okay, 30 of your units are at 60% AMI, 10 of your units are at 30. And so Home Forward basically has to abide by those restrictions. And so if they wanted to change the rates, or if they wanted to turn a 60% AMI unit into like a 30% AMI unit, they would have to go through the city on that. And I haven't explored it enough to know if the city is open to that. But that also potentially makes some problems for like the actual, building owner or the developer, because they have to repay their construction loan. So they can't drop rents that much. So it is a like really tough problem right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find this area median income issue so interesting. I mean, because what it basically tells me is that like we have been working so hard to build affordable housing. We've been talking about it so much. And this just sort of shows that like there is a fair amount of it in existence, but we just built the wrong stuff 5 or 10 years ago, right? Like we miscalculated what the demand was going to be and ended up building these things that are adjusted to 60% of the median income when that is like actually not what the city needs, which I think is going to be an ongoing thorn in the side for the city of figuring out exactly how to project what the need is going to be and to build stuff today that is going to be hitting the needs in like 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. Is just going to be very difficult. And it is interesting that because of this system, it's hard for the city to pivot, right? That they have perfectly usable apartments, but because they aren't in the right category, they can't get filled, which is just so frustrating.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that they can't just reassign, and I know it's tied to possibly funding, all that stuff, but it's too bad. Because like immediately you're just like, yeah, just make it 40, And Sophie, I'm sure you didn't go deep into like why they're not able to switch things around, but have they at all proposed any solutions? Like, okay, we know this problem is existing. This is how we're going to move forward. Because all I'm seeing is that they're going to announce layoffs.
Yes.
And I'm just like, how is that going to fix anything?
Oh, yeah. So Home Forward gave me a number of things that they're sort of exploring, but I will say none of them were particularly like compelling to me or seemed like actual solutions. They sort of seemed like a bit of Band-Aid job. One of them is like more targeted marketing. What that means, don't really know. Another was that they are dropping rents at some of the properties by a little bit. And so they are hoping that will get more people into those units and actually fill some of them. Again, I think they've actually dropped rents, again, very modestly at 2 buildings, and then they're planning on doing it at a third. The third thing that both the Portland Housing Bureau and the Home Forward team have told me is that we are working with Mayor Wilson's strike team to address vacancies. But when I tried to ask follow-up questions about what exactly that meant or what that looked like, it was like, this is in progress. So I wouldn't say that's really a tangible thing yet, because it seems to be, in the great words of Donald Trump, a concept of a plan.
Yeah.
So,
but it sounds cool.
It
Strict
does.
team.
Strict team. It's very intense. Sounds very military.
I'm sorry. I just saw people like coming down from ropes with like vouchers, and I'm just like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's deep budget cuts happening, and that's why Home Forward is like laying people off.
Last week, we found out that Home Forward is facing a $35 million budget cut. In next year's budget. That's primarily because the feds haven't raised the amount of funding they're giving to local housing authorities to adjust for just increasing costs locally.
Gotcha.
Increasing the cost of actually administering these programs. And so the biggest cut as part of that $35 million is $14 million from the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is basically, like, think of it as Section 8 housing vouchers. So that's the biggest cut of that $35 million cut. But yeah, I mean, Home Forward's not, their picture is not particularly rosy. And so I'm not sure how much effort they're really going to be able to put into filling these units. I mean, the other thing is like, it makes sense to fill these units because they're also going to be getting income from it, right? Like, some rent is always better than no rent, but I also think it's a stubborn problem.
Yeah. Well, thanks for looking into this. I guess it's a story that's developing. I can't wait to see the strike team uniforms. Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, more headlines of the week. So my headline, y'all, is a bit of a follow-up from our last Friday roundup when our senior producer, Julia Figlioni, looked into the 3 final candidates hoping to become our city's top bureaucrat. Now, that person hired would be the city's first permanent city administrator, a new to us role that was previously held by interim city administrator Michael Jordan. Again, no, not that Michael Jordan. I relied on reporting by Portland Mercury's Jeremiah Hayden, who did a great job really digging into this, as well as Oregonian Shane Dixon Kavanaugh, as well as the city of Greeley, Colorado's press releases and Colorado's Fox 31 News. So just know that I also had some questions. So this city administrator manages the day-to-day operations, as well as 4 deputy city administrators that oversee city operations, community and economic development, public safety, and public works. The city admin also carries out policy that's been approved by city council and our city's $8.6 billion budget. Now, this is a very powerful role in our city leadership and possibly one of, if not the highest paying job. And this Tuesday, Mayor Keith Wilson announced his pick, which then now goes to City Council for approval. But before I share his pick, if you haven't already heard it, I'm going to quickly remind you who the 3 final candidates were. We had Maurice Henderson, a one-time chief of staff to former Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, was also a former assistant director at PBOT, and learned recently a former senior advisor to the Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. But I think his proximity to Ted Wheeler really soured some folks at the city, not wanting anything to do with our city's previous administration. Another final candidate was Valerie Washington, an assistant city administrator for Fort Worth, Texas. According to their city's website, Valerie oversaw aviation, environmental services, office of the medical director, and property management departments. Before that, she worked the city of Indianapolis and served in various public safety related departments. A note that Fort Worth has nearly double Portland's population and about a $3 billion budget, which, side note, y'all, it's really alarming that Portland's budget is nearly triple that. Not even as many people, but whatever. And who the mayor chose was Raymond Lee, the previous manager of Greeley, Colorado, a position he held for, roughly 4 years or so. Greeley has a population of about 116,000 people, which is roughly a sixth of Portland's, and a budget of $515 million. Which is very far away from the $8.6 billion budget he will be overseeing. He also oversaw 1,600 city employees. Portland has about 6,500. So the scale, as you can see, would be a lot different. Raymond Lee had also resigned as city manager a couple weeks before Wilson's announcement of this position, and his resignation went into effect December 2nd, which was the day that Mayor Wilson announced his nomination. I'm saying this because it actually will come up later. And here's why the mayor picked Raymond Lee. Because if you're like hearing everything I'm saying, it's sounding a little like, is he even qualified? But according to Sophie Peel from the Willamette Week, Wilson cited major projects spearheaded by Lee as a reason, including an intergovernmental partnership to revitalize Greeley's downtown, including a launch of a massive entertainment and housing district with a proposed 10,000-seat arena, resort hotel, water park, and a multimodal transit hub representing $1.1 billion in investment. So he revitalized a dying downtown. So +1, right? Raymond was also credited for creating a housing and homelessness solutions department, a department that has served just over 1,000 people since 2024, and 250 of those people have remained housed for at least 2 years. So the picture should be getting a little clearer as why Wilson is like, small fry city or not, this might be our guy. But before I go into bubbling concerns by Willamette Week commenters, what do you guys think?
You know, I haven't dug deep on this guy. I think it's really interesting that he announced his resignation weeks before he was even announced as a finalist for this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the circumstances, but usually when people are just applying for jobs, they don't resign. Like, you usually resign once you've, either have gotten the job or have been named as a finalist. So maybe there's nothing to that. I don't know, but it piqued my curiosity a little bit. I also say, like, Greeley is a really interesting city. Like, whenever, I was talking to a couple of friends about Greeley, like I mentioned it, and they were like, oh, that's the city that's known for its meat processing plants, and it just stinks. Like, apparently, like, the city reeks. It's interesting. It's such a different, like, type of city than Portland. One, it's much smaller. Two, it's kind of industrial.
And it's Republican.
Yeah.
I think that's a big, like, by the way.
Portland does not have a lot of, we have industry, but not that type of industry. Not like farms and meat processing plants and that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting pick. One person mentioned to me that, we are trying to bring an MLB team here. We're trying to bring an MLB stadium here. And this guy seems to have done, or at least started, a huge entertainment district. I will say It was really interesting to me in Wilson's, when he put out his press release about choosing Raymond Lee, he said the entertainment district includes, all these proposed things, which to me makes it seem like those things have not actually gotten their legs yet.
Exactly. It's just like, hey, we have room for these things.
Right. We would like these things to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's maybe some more room for
concepts of
exploration there. Yeah, concepts of a plan. I got lots of those.
Yeah, so because I was trying to think like why Wilson was like, this is my guy. And I'm like, well, it sounds to me that Raymond Lee is an optimist. My fear is, I'm not going to say delusional. I'm going to say very optimistic people selling each other a story.
Mm.
And then we have to deal with the aftermath of the actual resolution of that narrative.
Yeah.
But what were you going to say, John?
The thing that is most interesting to me in all of this is that, like, city administrator is still new. I don't think we entirely know how the city administrator is going to work long term in relation to the rest of our city government, right? So far, we have one city administrator under our belts, which has been Michael Jordan, who basically designed the role and, like, helped to inform on how the transition into the new form of government was going to work anyways. So we can't really count on that as a model for what it's going to be like. And there is sort of this simmering tension between potentially the power of this city council, which has been expanded to 12 people, and the sort of potential duo of a mayor and a city administrator, right? How is power going to be distributed amongst those bodies? I feel like that is something that's going to be proven out over the course of this guy's job, which means that, in addition to having a very powerful role in the city, he could also have a role in sort of shaping the culture and structure of how government interacts with itself for a long time to come.
Definitely.
I think, John, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Like, I hope Raymond understands what he's getting into if he's confirmed, because basically there's like a tug of war between the mayor and the council over who the city administrator reports to, basically.
Exactly.
It's a huge power struggle. And I think the council is deeply, deeply aware of that. And if they get a sense that Raymond will answer to Mayor Wilson and will be more his employee than their employee, they're going to balk at that. Like, if he's confirmed, he is entering a really, really intense position where he is going to have to answer to like 13 people. And like Michael Jordan, who's been a top bureaucrat for like 40 years, maybe longer, like he doesn't even know how to deal with that. This came up at the city council meeting on Wednesday morning when he said, yeah, we're having issues with like who I'm reporting it to and what council's powers are versus my powers are. And he's like, we've always like run around the bush on this thing, but we've never actually sat down and had a conversation about like, okay, the charter does not lay out clearly what my job is versus what your job is. And like, we got to figure that out. Yeah. And no way Mike Jordan is going to figure that out in the next 30 days. But man, if like, I hope he's got a tough skin because this is a hard job.
Well, next steps, the city council is expected to vote on the confirmation next Wednesday, December 10th. If confirmed, Lee is expected to start working December 29th and relocate to Portland in January. So that's where we are with that, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Sophie and John. Before we head out, we have some shout outs from our members of our Portland Neighbors program. That's, again, one of the perks of being a pay member of CityCast Portland, the opportunity to shout out your favorite local business or organization that you love. John, you want to kick us off?
I would love to kick us off with one from Andrew G., who wants to shout out the Rose and Thistle Pub on Northeast Broadway. Has great burgers, weekly trivia nights, and good vibes. Also, the Grace Memorial Episcopal Church, which hosts weekly community dinners on Sundays starting at 5 p.m.
Nice. I've been curious about that place. I see it a lot.
The church or the bar?
The Rose and Thistle Pub. Maya P. Wants to shout out Bing Me Noodles and Dumpling Bar in Northwest, run by the kind and dedicated Jackie. His delicious, unique Northern Chinese jiangbing crepes saved me during the pandemic, and I keep going back.
Oh my God, I love Bing Me so much. That place is delicious. I got one more from Kelly Joy K, who wants to shout out Firefly Lighting Design and Repair. They are an amazing new local lighting repair and restoration business that is very affordable and very awesome.
Nice. So shout out to Andrew, Maya, and Kelly Joy, and a huge thanks to our newest member, Ramona D. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be super happy to read your shout outs of places you love in Portland, alongside all the perks we've mentioned, like ad-free listening. You can join at membership.citycast.fm, and right now, if you join, you get a beanie. So that's pretty sick. You guys, always a pleasure to host you both. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning, going through some of the headlines of the week. And to everyone listening, have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks so much, Claudia.
Thanks, Claudia.
Again, shout out to the YMCA of Columbia Willamette for sponsoring today's show. If you want to help support their community food pantries, after-school meals, youth development, and other family enrichment programs, you can do so at ymcacw.org/gratitude. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Notarianni, Julia Fiaioni, Shannon Lynch, Lizzie Goldsmith, and myself. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, alongside Opal 99 and D-May, courtesy of Triple Scoop Music. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you with Slims.